now that I've had a chance to read Brother Judge Scott McAfee's ruling on whether Sister Fani and Brother Wade should be disqualified from the Trump RICO case in Fulton County, Georgia, I'll tell you what I think about Sister Fani's new perfume and whether I think this whole mess has the odor of mendacity.
When you took office, you had a tax lien of $4,600. Did you pay that with cash when you made that tax lien whole?
I probably paid through however you pay.
Okay. So, but you were saying that you had amounts of cash. You still had that lien in 2022 when you were dating Wade and going on these trips. So the cash that you gave him, that could have been used to pay this tax lien off?
You gonna tell me how to pay my bills?
Do you know when you paid your tax lien?
I don't.
You don't? Do you know if you paid it?
I know I've paid some taxes. I don't know. I don't want to speculate.
Hi there, I'm Professor Blackmore, and welcome back to my channel and to my podcast series entitled, Is Sister Fani Wearing the Odor of Mendacity? And although this backwards dress and this upside down American flag pin ought to tell you everything you need to know about the state of affairs in the criminal justice system in Fulton County, Georgia, I'm coming back to you today to shine the spotlight on even more sex, lies, and videotapes from the Fani Willis saga. Because although I feel confident that Sister Fani and Brother Wade's legal careers have taken a serious body blow, her and her lovers' inevitably impending careers on the Real Housewives of Atlanta is plentiful, because in the blessed name of Jesus, they have completely crushed their audition tape for that job. Now, while Brother Judge Scott McAfee's ruling on whether Sister Fani and Brother Wade should be disqualified from the Trump RICO case was not completely given in the area of demonstrating that he has a set of huevos rancheros, if you know what I mean, you have to agree that out of all of the judges in that heavily Democrat county, Donald Trump better be thanking his lucky stars that this case ended up in one of probably the very few, if not only, courtrooms in that building with a Republican judge. But if you want to know what grade I give this judge for this written opinion he rendered on the defendant's motion to disqualify Brother Wade, Sister Fani, and or her entire office, you better stick around until the end. Now, I could care less about the lavish Bahamian trips that Sister Fani went on with her lover. And although Brother Judge McAfee's written opinion gives little to no treatment to it, I think we can all see that Sister Fani was not in the best shape, financially speaking, as set forth in the book entitled Find Me the Votes, and as exemplified in her own testimony of how her finances were, at least slightly, in total disarray, allegedly.
When you took office, you had a tax lien of $4,600. Did you pay that with cash when you made that tax lien whole?
I probably paid through however you pay.
Okay. So, but you were saying that you had amounts of cash. You still had that lien in 2022 when you were dating Wade and going on these trips. So the cash that you gave him, that could have been used to pay this tax lien off?
You gonna tell me how to pay my bills?
Re-ask the question.
You had a tax lien in 2022, $4,600.
Did you say I did?
And you did not use this cash that you had to reimburse Mr. Wade to pay that off, correct?
No.
Okay.
I went shopping too when I didn't pay it off.
And you talked about, you gave a lot of interviews to some authors of a book called Find Me the Votes, right?
I would not characterize it as a lot. I probably have spoken to them 2 or 3 times.
My question is relevant as to...
I think it's already come up. Finances are discussed in the book. I'll overrule that.
Thank you.
Ms. Wilson, you can continue your answer.
What came up with Mr. Wade as it relates to hearsay statements that he was asked about in relation to what Ms. Willis may or may not have said in relation to an author. So it's not relevant to the testimony that's occurring at this time.
I think Ms. Merchant has said that inside the book, she also makes a statement as to her own finances, and that's that issue.
So you gave interviews to the authors of this book, correct?
Once or twice.
Okay. And
Just to be comprehensive. I don't know if it was 3 times, 2 or 3 times, I think.
you were quoted in the book, and I will give you a chance to say if this is a misquote. You were quoted, when they asked you about if you wanted to run for office for DA, you were quoted, "I really don't want to be financially effed up again." Do you remember saying that?
So what that refers to,
My question first is if you remember saying that.
I remember saying something similar to that, but I would like to be able to explain what that's in
fine.
reference to. That's not in reference to anything else. It was a huge sacrifice to be district attorney in Fulton County. Huge. I was doing just fine. I had a municipal court judgeship that was paying me $100-something thousand a year, and like you got to show up twice a week. Easiest thing I've ever done in life. I also had private clients that were paying me to represent them. So I was able to have a law practice and that. I was telling people, I don't really run for DA. I don't want to run for DA. I'm in a good position right now. I got this easy job that I enjoy, being the chief judge of the city of South Fulton. I'm making money at the law firm, and I'm not sure that I want to make this sacrifice. And why does it always have to be me? Eventually, I prayed. I think that I was the appropriate person. I think that I did that. So when you're referring to that, what I'm saying is, why should I make a sacrifice again? And what I was not talking about is being district attorney. Once you get elected district attorney, you're in a fine financial position. I make over $200,000 a year. So that needs to be in the appropriate context.
Isn't it true that the authors also wrote, and you can dispute this if you'd like, that you were broke after that race?
The 2018 race.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a hard race. I wasn't broke like I didn't have any. So broke is relative to depending where you are.
They characterized it from their conversations with you that you were broke, you had poured your own money into the campaign, and you weren't able to pay your own bills because of your clients couldn't pay their bills to you, and you had a paltry array of family and asset forfeiture cases. It says you were trying to make it month to month. Is that an accurate depiction of your financial situation at that point?
I would want to read that, but I don't remember clients not being able to pay their bills. Or
May I approach this?
you can't.
You may.
Page 13.
I have not read this book. I did have family law cases. I guess that's what they're talking about. And clients who couldn't pay their bills ain't clients, so no.
So my question was just if this was a fair and accurate representation where it says you were trying to make it month to month at that point.
No, I don't think that that is actually a fair and accurate representation.
You know when you paid your tax lien?
I don't.
You don't? Do you know if you paid it?
I know I've paid some taxes. I don't know. I don't want to speculate.
Now, what I like about Sister Merchant is that she is about that life. Because she ain't scared of Sister Fani at all, honey child. And if you're the chief law enforcement officer in the entire county and you can't pay your tax bill to the extent that it eventually turns into a tax lien, then that should tell you everything you need to know. I mean, Sister Fani is sworn in as DA in January of 2021. She has the lien when she was sworn in, and she still doesn't pay it off until 2022? That tells me that she couldn't pay it off, or that she had no regard for the law and she just didn't want to pay it off. Either way, it's not worthy of a candidate that I would vote for. But I guess that ain't none of my business. Notwithstanding, rather than following this thread, it seems quite interesting that Brother Judge McAfee seemed to ignore it and wanted to spend so much time in his written opinion on these penny-any trips that Sister Fani and Brother Wade were so busy taking when everyone watching could clearly see that the theory of the case centers around ascertaining whether any portion of the outstanding $700,000 worth of taxpayer funds that Brother Wade siphoned out of Fulton County by way of his sugar mama, baby girl Sister Fani, whether any of it went into her pocket. And Brother McAfee gave no treatment whatsoever to that part of this bedtime story. I mean, how is it that the elected district attorney's salary is $200,000 per year, but the outside counsel special purpose assistant district attorney can bill $700,000 in the time period of only a few months? Both of the individuals testify that they are handing large sums of cash back and forth between them, and you call it the mere odor of mendacity, Your Honor?
What I'm telling you is that throughout the course of my life, I have always kept cash in my house. That cash has ranged from times, my father would probably be ashamed of this because he would say it should be more, but that cash at times has ranged from $500 to maybe $9,000, and he would be like, that is not what I told you to do. I've always had that amount of money. What I've told you is that when I travel, you do better negotiating when you travel. If you have cash, you go to get the cab. They say, oh, we're going to charge you $300 for the day. Well, I got American cash. Will you take it for $150? And so it's my practice to take money when I travel. We're not talking about a whole lot of money. We're going to the Bahamas. $1,500 in cash is in my pocket, or at the most $2,500. Belize was actually probably the most money I've ever taken. And it was taken because it was a big deal.
Have you told us today that you would keep a cash hoard in your residence up to about $9,000? Yes or no?
And throughout the course of my adult life. And so let's even be more specific than that. Probably from the time...
Your Honor, I'm only asking for yes or no rather than...
But we have already covered this, so I
But yeah,
want to get to that point. I know you're laying the foundation, but it's already been laid. So
Yes.
The filibuster is here. I'm trying to move through the filibuster.
Yeah, but we're not talking about a lot of... And so it could be $2,000, it could be $1,500, it could be $7,500. It just depends on what you're doing at that time.
Now, when Miss Willis would pay you in cash, would you scamper down to the ATM with her, and as she drew money out of her account
Your
to
Honor.
pay you these thousands of dollars?
Mr. Gillen likes scamper, but there's been no evidence that Mr. Wade does. I object to the phrasing, the argumentative nature of the question.
on that issue, overruled.
Did you go down to the ATM with Miss Willis while she drew out $2,794 to pay you in cash that you did? Did you go to the ATM with her?
No, sir. She didn't go to the ATM. She carried the cash.
Oh, and so she would give you the cash. Did you have a little place in your house where you just stack up all this cash that you apparently got to repay you for these benefits that you bestowed on her?
And Mr. Gillen, if I answered that, I'm putting myself in jeopardy. If I tell the world that I have cash someplace in my home, don't you think that could be problematic?
No, I don't. I want an answer as to whether or not you have a little cash hoard in your house where you have allegedly taken the money that you got from Mrs. Willis and went and put it somewhere. Where'd you put it?
No, sir.
Now, just put it on the hip and kind of walk around on it?
And so, with all of this being said, although Brother Judge McAfee does state regarding the issue of an actual conflict of interest that the court does not condone the, quote, tremendous lapse in judgment or the unprofessional manner of Sister Fani's testimony during the evidentiary hearing, end quote, I disagree with him when he says in his written opinion, quote, defendants failed to meet their burden of proving that the DA acquired an actual conflict of interest, in this case through her personal relationship and recurring travels with her lead prosecutor, end quote. And to this, I say, with all due respect, Your Honor, Brother Judge McAfee, there is a dead cat on the electrical line somewhere. Because why would a person who's making $200,000 per year, who has no regard for paying off her tax lien, feel that she has to pay a person back who is making $700,000 in a matter of months when she made it possible for the person to make all of that money? So, everybody can see that this is basic conflict of interest 101, and how Brother Judge McAfee can talk about Sister Fani's unprofessional behavior on the witness stand when he really says nothing at all about her blatant lies that she told under oath while also on the witness stand kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit over here. And as you can see in Brother Judge McAfee's written opinion, the whole issue of the enormity of the amount of money and the feverish thirst to hide the romantic relationship is not, in my opinion, wholly predicated on an incentive to prolong the case that creates the financial odor of mendacity. On the contrary, the prolonging of the case was only one factor, Your Honor, that the defendants were trying to argue created part of the conflict of interest. But it seems to me that throughout Brother McAfee's written opinion, he seemed to want to grab hold of the weakest arguments made when it is clear to everybody that the glaring disparity in the amount of salary earned by the lovers is clearly fishy. I mean, you heard Sister Fani just testify that her DA salary is $200,000 per year, and we all know that the special purpose assistant DA, Brother Wade, is making $700,000 within the time period of a few months. And we have Brother Wade and Sister Fani testifying about how Sister Fani is giving Brother Wade large sums of cash back when she's saying in the book, Find Me the Votes, that she was in dire financial straits. So, I don't see why any of us watching this mess should not think that it would come to pass that Brother Wade would slip his baby girl, Sister Fani, $100,000 or $200,000 out of that $700,000 windfall, allegedly. At least that is what everybody else is thinking. And if nobody else is willing to admit it, I'll tell you one thing, it is exactly what I'm thinking. I mean, having a person who makes $200,000 per year bring her lover on board, who can siphon $700,000 over the time span of months, well, it is clear that this creates a glaring financial conflict when you have defendants at a crumbling Fulton County jail for months and even years who can't even have their day in court because DA Sister Fani is so busy creating a farce of a case against a former president of the United States for the purpose of creating a perceived additional stream of income for herself while she is gallivanting all around the Caribbean and other exotic places, allegedly.
Throw out some numbers to you, and I'd love to get your reaction to. According to Fulton County Court Administration, through a public records request, there were about 1,232 individuals at the jail as of August of this year who had not been indicted. Commissioner Ellis just 2 days ago talked about the unindicted at the jail, and he referenced 521 inmates at the jail that have been there more than 90 days who are unindicted. 60 of them have been there more than a year. And he said, quote, "If that's not pretty disturbing data, I don't know what is." What's your reaction to that?
That Commissioner Ellis is not a supporter of criminal justice, is ignorant, doesn't know what he's talking about most days, and is just not really trying to make himself informed of the issues or the progress. That would be my reaction to that statement. People have to be realistic about what was here when we arrived, what the crime rates were just post-pandemic, and then realistic about the resources it will take to deal with the issues.
Well, in other words, it's not Sister Fani's fault that there is a backlog of cases while people sit for months on end in the jail while she's in Belize, Aruba, and the Bahamas 2 times. And while instead of focusing on the backlog of cases and other violent crime in the county, she chooses to waste her time trying to criminalize elections. Now, as I previously informed you, Judge Brother Scott McAfee was appointed to sit on the bench of this court by the Republican governor of Georgia. And so again, to be clear, having this judge assigned to this case was the best possible thing that could have happened to Donald Trump, because I am sure mostly all of those elected judges in that courthouse in the heavily Democrat Fulton County are Democrat judges. However, It is clear that Brother Judge McAfee and Sister Fani know each other very well. And in fact, news reports indicate that, quote, one of his first jobs was in the Fulton County District Attorney's office. There, he handled early stages of felony cases before he was promoted to the Complex Trial Division. That division was led at that time by Sister Fani, end quote. Notwithstanding the fact that Brother Judge was formally appointed to sit on the bench in that courtroom, he will now need to be elected into that seat if he wants to remain. And as I also previously informed you, Brother McAfee will have an opponent in that upcoming election who is a well-known civil rights attorney and radio host in that region, Brother Robert Patillo, who is no fan of Sister Fani, who states, quote, there are a lot more things that are broken in the Fulton County Court that deserve attention, more than Fani and the Trump trial. There are people who have been in that jail for 5 years awaiting trial. Anyone who is going to be a judge needs to plan to bring these cases to court, end quote. And so, I would say, in addition, you need a prosecutor who is not busy gallivanting back and forth to the Bahamas, Aruba, and Belize, who will actually bring the indictments with the same energy that she indicted Donald Trump. Because without an indictment, the case can never make it to the courts. And so, I hope this judge does not think that this attempt to split the baby with this half-baked ruling will garner Democrat voters in that county because the baby died. And if he thinks that because he didn't bring the hammer all the way down on Sister Fani will leave him in her good graces so he can ride on the Fani machine, which I hear is a thing in that county, well, I don't think that dog is gonna hunt either, because all politics are local. And I think what I am hearing from the constituents of that county is that they want something done about the condition of the Fulton County Jail, and they want something done about the fact that you have people sitting in those jail conditions in that jail for extended periods of time without an indictment because you have a DA who is preoccupied. And while Brother Judge McAfee does not find that there was sufficient evidence to find that there was an actual conflict of interest, he does list all of the other authorities who could hold Sister Fani accountable, including but not limited to, quote, the Georgia General Assembly, the Georgia State Ethics Commission, the State Bar of Georgia, the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, or the voters of Fulton County, end quote. In other words, he would much rather that everybody else except him take a piece of Sister Fani. Nevertheless, I will say at this point that Judge Brother Scott McAfee has, in fact, told his draws with Sister Fani, as he has all but said to any and everyone who wants to come for her to come right on and get her ass. Notwithstanding, however, in my opinion, the judge's written ruling leaves a lot of things out. For example, he does not say much of anything about the fact that the entire office was conflicted when Sister Fani made the awful decision of allowing her office to represent and defend her in this mess instead of hiring outside counsel. In other words, not only do you have Sister Fani enthralled in her own thirsty attempt to cover up all of this mess, but you have her entire office so tangled up in their own thirsty attempt to fix this mess for their boss, if I may add, that they're objecting to every question being asked during the evidentiary hearing. And in my opinion, this thing went completely off the charts in terms of the entire office being conflicted when Sister Fani stormed into the courtroom and took the stand when she couldn't decide if her office was representing her or if she was representing herself.
Yes, my address had been exposed, so yes, there was concerns about potential danger at my house.
Okay, so anyone staying at your house in the time period after you went to the Yerty condo was still in danger, correct?
Yeah, well, no, he did.
I think you have to, it's your attorney, Ms. Willis. Sorry, Mr. Bott, your objection is speculation
Yes.
to the question of
Speculation.
whether someone was still in danger at her condo.
I can,
Just let her answer the question.
Or Mr. Sadow wants to rephrase.
No,
I'm not sure.
I was able to
I've got
understand it.
I've got the objection, and then I have,
I'll withdraw the objection. You can move forward.
Okay.
So, and I don't remember the question, so I can answer it.
well, you can now that the objection's been withdrawn. Can you try to answer that question?
Yes.
Was there still a safety concern
I was-
for people staying at the house?
Yes, I was very concerned about my father still living at the house.
In the blessed name of Jesus, Sister Fani, you have control issues, baby girl. I mean, this poor attorney who works for you now, trying to make an objection on your behalf, and the attorney who used to work for you, who is now supposed to be the judge in charge of this courtroom, seems apoplectic. And you're so busy trying to be in charge of everything, you can't recognize that you need to keep your big mouth closed so this thing won't look like even bigger of a conflict for your entire office. Oh, but anyway, y'all, let me stay focused, because although Brother Judge McAfee did not find sufficient evidence existed to rule that there was an actual conflict of interest, he did find that Sister Fani and Brother Wade's actions did give rise to a, quote, significant appearance of impropriety that infects the current structure of the prosecution team, an appearance that must be removed through the state's selection of one of two options, end quote. Now, those two options included Sister Fani choosing to either remove herself and her entire office from the case, of which Brother Wade was technically included because he was her assistant special purpose prosecutor, or Sister Fani could remove her lover, Brother Wade, from the case. And as you know, Brother Wade voluntarily stepped down from the case. And if you thought that Brother Judge Scott McAfee was giving himself some leeway to remain in Sister Fani's good graces so he could reap the benefits from the Fani political machine in Fulton County by not doing what he should have done, by kicking her ass completely off this case, point blank, then you better think again, because in my opinion, he completely tore his draws with Sister Fani. I would imagine at this point, because he says in his written opinion, as it relates to the appearance of impropriety conflict standard, that, quote, even if the romantic relationship with Brother Wade began after the initial contract in November of 2021, as Sister Fani and Brother Wade have testified with so much thirst, did not begin until early 2022, Sister Fani chose to continue supervising and paying Brother Wade while maintaining such a relationship. She further allowed the regular and loose exchange of money, which should say cash money, between them without any exact or verifiable measure of reconciliation. This lack of a confirmed split creates the possibility and appearance that Sister Fani benefited from, albeit non-materially, from a contract whose award lay solely within her purview and policing, end quote. Now, Lordy have mercy, y'all. This is the weakest ass shit I have ever seen written by a judge. My God, we have people who are supposed to be professionals playing around with close to $1 million worth of the public's money, and this man, Brother Judge Scott McAfee, wants to call it a non-material benefit. In addition, while Brother McAfee does point out Sister Fani's, quote, unprofessional testimony on the witness stand, end quote, I find it interesting that while he clearly points out what he calls Brother Wade's, quote, patently unpersuasive explanations indicating a willingness on his part to wrongly conceal his relationship, end quote, with Sister Fani, in other words, lies, but he does not say any freaking thing about Sister Fani's flat-out lies in her own efforts to wrongfully conceal the romantic relationship. And then Brother McAfee completely blew me away when he said, quote, neither side was able to conclusively establish by a preponderance of evidence when the relationship evolved into a romantic one, end quote. I mean, my God, Brother McAfee, it's not dispositive to ascertain when the romance actually began, but one thing we do know is that it began at least by September the 11th, 2021, which is prior to the time when the initial contract began on November the 1st, 2021, because the cell phone records clearly indicate that on September the 11th, 2021, Brother Wade's cell phone was at Sister Fani's hate-filled love nest from 10:45 p.m. until the next morning at 3:28 a.m. But I guess Brother Judge McAfee has never heard of a booty call. In addition to the fact that Sister Fani and Brother Wade were engaged in booty calls prior to the initial contract that began on November the 1st, 2021, they were also engaged in a romantic relationship prior to the beginning of the subsequent contract that began on November the 15th, 2022, because Brother Wade's phone left his home on November the 29th, 2021, beginning at 11:32 p.m. when he was on the phone with Sister Fani and arrived at her hate-filled love nest at 12:43 a.m. on November the 30th, 2021, and it remained there until 4:55 a.m. In addition, Brother Wade testified that the initial contract ended on October the 31st, 2022, at which time he was whining and dining Sister Fani in the Bahamas and Aruba when they both admit that they were at that time in a romantic relationship that started in early 2022, which is prior to the date of the subsequent contract that they entered into on November the 15th, 2022.
You got re-upped by Miss Willis right after you took Miss Willis to Aruba. Isn't that right? On that November the 1st, 2022 trip to Aruba and through November the 4th, 2022. Correct?
What does re-up mean?
Well, re-up means that you came back, your contract was up, and then on November the 15th, you and Miss Willis signed a new contract for you, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you were in taking her to the Aruba and on the cruises and the resort there, did you discuss your re-upping of signing an extension on your contract?
No, sir. But you make an excellent point. I'm glad you pointed that out. So the trip to Aruba, the contract was not in existence then.
So you're saying that you were not
under contract.
In your contract, did you send any invoices in for work that you did after your first contract expired?
No, sir.
You didn't?
No, sir.
So when that expired, that was it. So and then you're saying that after the Aruba trip, you get re-upped with a new contract, correct?
I signed a new contract, yes,
Now,
sir.
your romantic relationship began in 2022?
Yes, sir.
That's your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you were re-upped on this contract, you had a romantic relationship already established with Miss Willis, yes or no?
In 2022?
Yeah, when
Yes,
you were
sir.
re-upped on November the 15th, 2022, you had a romantic relationship with Miss Willis.
I signed the second contract, yes, sir.
Answer my question, please.
I'm not going to use the word
When you
re-up.
signed up we re-up, or whatever you want to call it, your contract on November the 15th, 2022, you had a romantic relationship already existing with Miss Willis, yes or no?
I signed the contract, the second contract, yes, sir, during the course
No,
of a romantic relationship.
Yes or no, you had a romantic relationship with her at the time that you signed up the extension on November the 15th, 2022, yes or no?
The answer to that question is yes.
In the blessed name of Jesus. Now that's what I call being matlocked. In other words, Brother Wade thought he was so clever to point out that he was not in a contract when he took Sister Fani to the Bahamas and Aruba between October the 31st, 2022 and November the 4th, 2022. But the only thing he did was to help the man establish that he and Sister Fani were yet again in a situation wherein they were in a romantic relationship prior to the date when his sugar mama gave him the second contract on November the 15th, 2022, after she received, I guess, what Brother Judge McAfee wants to call a, quote, non-material benefit, end quote. And so, for the life of me, I can't see how Brother McAfee can say with a straight face that, quote, neither side was able to conclusively establish by a preponderance of evidence when the relationship evolved into a romantic one, end quote, when we can clearly see that it began prior to the time when both contracts initiated. And so I'm sorry, Brother McAfee, but I give you a D as in dog for this flimsy written opinion that you put out here on this courthouse internet. And I kind of feel as if you tried to go through the testimony by possibly reading the transcripts rather than watching videos. Because in my opinion, there is no way to really break down the filibustering lies told by Sister Fani without playing and replaying her testimony on videotape. It was easy to synthesize Brother Wade's lies because he was a bit slower in his presentation. So, I don't know if Brother Judge McAfee is just blind or if he just does not want to see what everybody else can clearly see. But ladies and gentlemen of this internet courthouse jury, what do you think? I mean, what in the freaking hell is going on here? Is Sister Fani the only one bathing in the fragrance of the odor of mendacity? Or is there something that does not smell right around this judge, creating an odor of mendacity around this entire mess? I mean, do you think that further investigation by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation would possibly reveal that Sister Fani received any other portions of that $700,000 Brother Wade made on this case, allegedly? Please let me know what you think by leaving your comments in the comments section below. And I hope you'll also give me a big thumbs up. And I hope you'll also consider donating to this video and my entire channel ministry by donating to the ProfessorBlackmore.com Cash App. And I hope you'll also subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I really want to ask you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It really helps. And I really want to increase my subscriber count. And so please subscribe to my YouTube channel and set your notifications so you'll be notified whenever I come back with more hot tea from the church house, the courthouse, and everywhere else. And please also follow me on TikTok and Instagram.